Parshah coming to you from Jerusalem, from Yerushalayim Ira Kodesh, the holy city of Jerusalem. And it's wonderful to be able to say that winter really has arrived, and we've even had a little bit of rainfall, quite a blessing. In this video, the first thing I'd like to do is to thank those who've sent a comment to the previous video that I shared and have interacted with me both on LinkedIn and on my WhatsApp. That's very nice that people take the time to interact. Always wonderful to hear from others. It makes it so much easier to be able to create a video when one receives a little bit of interaction. This particular video is a follow-on from the previous one, and it's part of a 3 or 4 series of videos answering the question from somebody who was interested in my Patreon page, but she wanted to know what kind of content am I creating. So in the previous video, I'd mentioned the videos that I'm creating here on YouTube. And the first thing I would say is that this particular video has gone through, this is about the 4th take that I'm doing in order to try and make it a little bit more, for the flow to be smoother, to get the message across more effectively, to try and clarify exactly what kind of information, what I want to be sharing. So just preparing these videos is a time-consuming process, and that's one area of content, as I mentioned previously. The next area of content is that I have a number of books that I'm writing, and these books are ideas that I've come across and areas of practice that I've been developing myself through my years of experience. Some of it is sharing from books. Some of the ideas for the books have come through my own personal journey from dealing with a chronic illness and applying a lot of my occupational therapy. Initially, I was going to write a book that shared my personal and professional experience and journey with the chronic illness. I'm not sure to what extent I'm going to complete or to publish that particular book, but I am adjusting it and working through how to create a series of journals and workbooks that could be of benefit for others. And I'm very interested in the whole area of prevention of injury and illness and promotion of health and wellness. Some of my interest in that came actually from, not only from the chronic illness that I've had, but from the kinds of patients that I've worked with, working in hospitals. It's concerned me tremendously, some of the causes of injury, as to why somebody would come into hospital, and also the complexity of a number of the injuries, the extent to which one's life can be totally turned upside down. To take a simpler example, I would say that on one occasion I was asked to cover the cardiac rehab program for a colleague of mine who was the OT involved in the cardiac rehab. And when I looked at the outline of the types of groups that she wanted me to be facilitating, I looked at the topic areas and I thought, what a pity that somebody would be having to come to learn and discuss and to work through stress management, lifestyle change, anger management, looking at one's relationships, looking at the way in which one is doing one's work, sometimes some ergonomics, sometimes some home modifications, and all to enable one to be able to regain function and to be able to function more normally after having a stroke or a heart attack. What a pity that one would get to those changes, that many of those changes are the kinds of changes that are the same sort of changes that one could do in order to prevent an illness or to promote health and wellness. Lifestyle change was not as popular 30 years ago. It's since been written up and researched far more by a university in America. And there's certain aspects that I've been researching myself as to what is the most effective lifestyle that one could be living in order to have a life of meaning and purpose and a healthy life, and to be able to increase one's years in this world and be able to set meaningful goals and to achieve those goals as far as possible. I'm very interested in what is it, how is it possible to reduce some of the traumas that take place in the world. So that's a topic that's been of interest to me. There's a certain group of patients that I met a number of times on ward round, and unfortunately, I could never quite understand why these patients were presented, and yet there was never any question as to what would the occupational therapist think of these cases. What would your role be? Could we refer to you? No question, no interaction, no discussion. Even at certain stages when I was discussing with some of my colleagues, with one case, yes, one of the patients did go to for a short period of time to occupational therapy, but there was far more that occupational therapy could have done for that particular patient. And how is it that the therapeutic process was stopped? Was it just because she was discharged? There were a number of questions that came up for me, and because it bothered me, and I'd been working quite a lot with journaling and then coming to create my own notebooks, journals, workbooks, and so on, I started to decide that perhaps to do a variation and to combine some other techniques from the ideas of using poetry and art and creative process therapeutically, I started to look at what could I use to bring these cases, to turn what had bothered me around to the good. What could I do to be able to help to educate? Is there anything I could do to get a message across to perhaps prevent the nature of the injury, the reason for the admission to hospital? And is there anything that I could do to help to get the message out to the rest of the team that perhaps those patients would be able to be referred to occupational therapy, hopefully, as I say, without their need for hospitalization, but if in the event that they were admitted, that they could have the rehabilitation that they require. So a lot of my interest is in helping to promote occupational therapy and also sharing insights that I've learned along the journey. That's quite a lot of what my goal now is about. Another idea that I've had is, or that I've come across again and again, is the potential in writing books and in doing videos and in writing blog posts to be able to reach a much larger audience and to get one's message across to far more people than one can through, if one's working with 8 patients a day or 16 patients a day, or in a group, in a small group. It's still a limit to the numbers as that one could be able to get a message across. And there are certain messages that, yes, I am wanting to share with others. You'll see in one of the other series, one of the playlists, I have a couple of videos that I put out so far on growth without gossiping, and the whole idea of guarding one's tongue, of looking at our lifestyle. I have one video out so far as to working in the kitchen, from combining some ideas of occupational therapy with perhaps mindfulness, you could say, and the idea of contemplating, meditating, getting in touch with our Creator as you're involved in day-to-day activities. That's something that's of great interest to me, and I'm hoping to do more of that in these videos, and a little bit of that comes into my books and into my blog posts as well. So that's some of my reasoning and some of my process, a little bit more of what I've learned in my journey of starting to write more books. I have got a list of books that I'm working on, and from time to time I jot down little bits of information or thoughts, or if I'm reading an article or I'm reading a book and it brings up something that validates a message that I was trying to impart or a topic that I was working on. So some of the books have been worked in phases, but now I'm starting to work more systematically through it. And my first insight or insight I have, plus a question that I pose at the same time. I started to join this challenge of writing a book during the month of November, of writing a novel during the month of November. And the reason it was a novel is because that's the genre, that's the type of book that was being written in a month. Personally, this is I'm currently working on the second in the series. I hope to be able to release them fairly close together for various reasons, which I could share in another video. And my experience with both of them is that I don't know how it's possible to write a book in a month. There's a lot of research that takes place. There's the writing, there's rewriting, there's editing, there's networking, making sure that the chapters and the scenes and the characters all flow in a logical sequence, that the personalities are appropriate to the types of cases that I'm wanting to share a little bit about, and to the messages that I'm wanting to impart. And all of that is a tremendously time-consuming process. For me personally, with the first book, I don't remember how long the actual writing took before I started to do more editing, and obviously rewriting took place with that as well. With the second book, I've tried to do writing 1,000 to 1,500 words on a daily basis, 5 days a week. And so far, November became December, and it came to the end of December, and I've reached 57,000 words, which is a little bit too short to be a novel itself. But I still do have some further chapters that I'm writing, so it's okay. There's more words to be written, just it hasn't been done in a month. As far as editing goes, there's a number of different types of editing. Grammarly is wonderful for helping with spelling and grammar, and making sure that one's sentences are a little bit shorter, that the structure is appropriate, and also that the words that I use are suitable for, because I presume that more of my readership would be coming from America. I'm having to change some of my language from what was used to in South Africa, and Grammarly is great for helping to make sure that I'm using the right spelling, the right type of spelling. Another aspect of editing is the developmental edit, and for that I'm wanting to reach out to a number of colleagues of mine who are doctors or other members of the team, and have experience with the kinds of clients that I've written about in my book. And that is a costly process. So being a part of the books that I write is not only assisting me to do the writing, but also to take the trouble and to make sure that it's a polished book that gets put out. Of course, aside from the editing, there's the formatting, the cover design, the blurb on the back, and then the marketing and promotion. There's a lot involved, and I would say that I've learned sufficient that if any of you occupational therapists out there or other health professionals are wanting to get into writing your own book, I'm very happy to help you, to coach you through the process, either of structuring or starting to write, or to decide what topics you're wanting to write on. I would also recommend that if somebody else, another health professional, finds themselves in the situation where they're working with types of patients whose reason for admission is disturbing, or is troubling, or it's weighing on you in any way, it's becoming difficult for you to deal with, a very beneficial tool to use is journaling, and to keep a personal journal, or to work with your insights, to work with what it is that you're feeling, perhaps to take some of those ideas to supervision. By working through it in journaling is a very nice way to be able to identify what topics you would want to be able to discuss further, either to do further reading, or perhaps to do a course, or to perhaps to seek further mentoring or coaching or supervision. So that's something that I would recommend to other health professionals as well. And I'm hoping that would help to reduce there unfortunately is a high percentage of health professionals who are either leaving the profession or who are ending their lives because of the tremendous stress involved with some of the cases that we work with and with the demands on us. And so as a result, I would recommend that you follow the example that I'm doing and also do journaling. I do have one journal that I've created so far for daily writing. The design on the cover, as you'll see coming up, is to inspire you to write, but I have ideas of other journals to do. If you have an interest for some journaling prompts that would help you with processing what kinds of thoughts and feelings you're going through with difficult, complex patients, or with polytrauma, or with the types of injuries that come into the hospitals, do put a comment in the comments below, or be in touch with me via my website, or if you find me on LinkedIn, or I'm available also on Facebook and on Instagram. If you find me in any of these platforms, you're welcome to send me a message, and I'll see what I can do to put that information together in one of my further journals and workbooks. So that's some of what I'm doing in my books. It's a little bit about what I'm doing in my novel, and it's a little bit of some of the learning that I've gained through this process. If you have more questions related to the topic, please put a comment in the comments below. If you've liked this video at all, please do give it a thumbs up, give it a like. If you don't like it, then of course you're welcome, as I've seen on some others, you're welcome to give it a thumbs down. You could do that also. If you have questions, do be in touch. I have had students contact me. I've had some interested in the Patreon. And speaking of the Patreon, I would just recommend that if you are interested in supporting me in writing further books, or you're interested in knowing what are the kinds of topics, the areas of occupational therapy, the areas of lifestyle change that I've been involved with and I'm sharing information about, you can join me on my Patreon. You could purchase one of the products in my online store, or have a look at what's available already on my Amazon. You can have a look at my Author Central, and there you'll find the book that I brought out so far, and the start of my notebooks and journals. And I'll be happy to answer certain other questions in a future video, and to share more in my next video as to what other content am I involved in that you would be supporting if you do become a member or a patron on my Patreon. Shoshana Shir coming to you from Jerusalem, and I hope that you stay healthy and you stay safe. And I'd be interested to hear what it is that you're working on. What are your goals, and what do you have in mind for this new year? Till the next video, say ciao for now.